Okay, so hey y'all, us is reading today. That's funny. So you can still see clean through this. This little tape don't really mean nothing. I thought I was doing something, y'all. I got some little tape right here. They say that ain't doing nothing. You gotta go ahead for real, cover that. Take this shit off. It ain't doing nothing. All right, let me get back to the book. So relationships seem to resemble the need of an anemic person who receives a kind of living transfusion from the mere sight of a savagely overabundant vitality. Watching Larkin's efforts, Reardon felt what he did when he watched an ant struggling under the load of a matchstick. It's so hard for him, thought Reardon, and so easy for me. So he gave advice, its attention, and a tactful, patient interest whenever he could. I'm your friend, Hank. Reardon looked at him inquiringly. Larkin glanced away, as if debating something in his mind. After a while, he asked cautiously, "How was your man Washington? How was your man in Washington?" "Okay, I guess. You ought to be sure of it. It's important." He looked at Reardon and repeated with a kind of stressed insistence, as if discharging a painful moral duty. "Hank, it's very important." "I suppose so. In fact, that's what I came here to tell you." For any special reason, Larkin considered it and decided that the duty was discharged. "No," he said. Reardon disliked the subject. He knew that it was necessary to have a man to protect him from the legislature. All industrialists had to employ such men, but he had never given much attention to this aspect of his business. He could not quite convince himself that it was necessary. An inexplicable kind of distaste, part fastidiousness, part boredom, stopped him whenever he tried to consider it. Pause. This is why it's important. Like, this is business. This book is everything. It's metaphysical, it's physical, it's tangible, it's intangible. There is now being introduced the thought of what I call comprehensive thinking, all around whole thinking, where if you're a part of it, you should know every part of it because it's just your benefit first and foremost. But then whoever you serve, if you serve him, will benefit because you know every part. That's just the way it should be. And they're just now introducing this as thinking because you got to know that kind of these kind of books is where these industries, these captains of industry, these industrialists, this was their thinking. I'm reading this book because I picked it up 1,000 times to read it. It's my time to read it right now, though. And I'm reading it to you because I know you people ain't gonna fucking read it. So I'm reading it to you. I enjoy it. I love reading. I'm gonna be reading this. I plan on finishing this book before Christmas. It has 1,267 pages. But hey, look, my life is built like that. Don't say nothing. And so yeah, I love this book, and it is highly, highly educational in terms of business. You got the beginning. I mean, you got to think about it like business schools were being created. You got the other Ivy Leagues and whatnot, and all of that. I believe it is my belief, my strong belief. I have nothing to support this as a fact, but I believe that Anne had access to these captains of industry and families and other things, and that that she then took that and she was like, "What the hell are we doing? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing out here?" And so she wrote this book that has various ideas that are juxtaposed and caught up and correlated and intertwined. And so, yeah, this book, and I think A Tale of Two Cities should absolutely be adapted right now. So, trouble is, Paul, he said. This is Larkin talking. Trouble is, Paul, he said, thinking aloud, that the men one has to pick for that job are such a crummy lot. Larkin looked away. That's life, he said. Damned if I see why. Can you tell me that? What's wrong with the world? Larkin shrugged sadly. Why ask useless questions? How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky? Who is John Galt? Reardon sat up straight. No, he said sharply. No, there's no reason to feel that way. He got up. His exhaustion had gone while he talked about his business. He felt a sudden spurt of rebellion, a need to recapture and defiantly to reassert his own view of existence, that sense of it which he had held while walking home tonight, and which now seemed threatened in some nameless manner. He paced the room, his energy returning. He looked at his family. They were bewildered, unhappy children, he thought, all of them, even his mother. And he was foolish to resent their ineptitude. It came from their helplessness, not from malice. Facts, facts, and facts again. It was he who had to make himself learn to understand them, since he had so much to give, since they could never share his sense of joyous, boundless power. He glanced at them from across the room. His mother and Philip were engaged in some eager discussion, but he noted that they were not really eager. They were nervous. Philip sat low in a chair, his stomach forward, his weight on his shoulder blades, as if the miserable discomfort of position were intended to punish the onlookers. What's the matter, Phil? Reardon asked, approaching him. You look done in. I've had a hard day, said Philip sullenly. You're not the only one in the world who works hard, said his mother. Others have problems too, even if they're not the $1 billion trans or upper continental problems like yours. Why, that's good. I always thought that Phil should find some interest of his own. Good. You mean you like to see your brother sweating his health away? It amuses you, doesn't it? I always thought it did. Why, no, Mother. I'd like to help. You don't have to help. You don't have to feel anything for any of us. Reardon had never known what his brother was doing or wished to do. He had sent Philip through college, but Philip had not been able to decide on any specific ambition. There was something wrong, by Reardon's standards, with a man who did not seek any gainful employment, but he would not impose his standards on Philip. He could afford to support his brother and never notice the expense. Let him take it easy, Reardon had thought for years. Let him have a chance to choose his career without the strain of struggling for a livelihood. What were you doing today, Phil? He asked patiently. It wouldn't interest you. It does interest me. That's why I'm asking. I had to see 20 different people from all over the place, from here to Reading to Wilmington. What did you have to see them about? I'm trying to raise money for Friends of Global Progress. Reardon had never been able to keep track of the many organizations to which Philip belonged, nor to get a clear idea of their activities. He had heard Philip talking vaguely about this one for the last 6 months. It seemed to be devoted to some sort of free lectures on psychology, folk music, and cooperative farming. Reardon felt contempt for groups of that kind and saw no reason for a closer inquiry into their nature. He remained silent. Philip added without being prompted, we need $10,000 for a vital program, but it's a martyr's task trying to raise money. There's not a speck of social conscience left in people. When I think of the kind of bloated money bags I saw today, why they spend more money than that on any whim, but I couldn't squeeze just $100 a piece out of them, which was all I asked. They have no sense of moral duty. What are you laughing at? He asked sharply. Reardon stood before him grinning. It was so childishly blatant, thought Reardon, so helplessly crude, the hint and the insult offered together. It would be so easy to squash Philip by returning the insult, he thought. By returning an insult which would be deadly because it would be true that he could not bring himself to utter it. Surely he thought the poor fool knows he's at my mercy, knows he's opened himself to be hurt. So I don't have to do it. And my not doing it, it is my best answer, which he won't be able to miss. What sort of misery does he really live in to get himself twisted quite so badly? And then Reardon thought suddenly that he could break through Philip's chronic wretchedness for once, give him a shock of pleasure, the unexpected gratification of a hopeless desire. He thought, what do I care about the nature of his desire? It's his, just as Reardon metal was mine. It just mean to him what that meant to me. That's a typo. I guess that should be it just means. It just and that's crazy. I would find a typo. Everybody had to see. You can't even assume that. I don't know if nobody's seen the typo. Um it means to him what it meant to me, what that meant to me. Let's see him happy just once. It might teach him something. Didn't I say that happiness is the agent of purification? I'm celebrating tonight. So let him share in it. It will be so much for him and so little for me. So let me see. I've been watching. I'm gonna do a little something right here, right quick. I have been watching the Scientology situation with Leah Remini. And because Anne Rand, let me go to Google and search. Anne Rand and L. Ron Hubbard, LRH, that's kind of the same time period, right? So we're gonna see. Actually, we're gonna ask Chat GPT. Oh my God, this shit gets on my nerve. My computer is so crazy, y'all. When I say so crazy, like bonkers. Give me Chat GPT. And so we finna ask Chat GPT if Ayn Rand and LRH had if they were in network. Were Ayn Rand and L or H or L Ron Hubbard. Y'all know three names is you need three names to move on in network. You need some help, baby? You need some help? I love you. No, but did they know each other? I hate it when Chat GPT act out brand new. Or or in same circles. ChatGPT gets so coy sometimes. Or it says there's no credible evidence or documentation to suggest well she couldn't be seen with him. Her circle primarily consisted of writers, intellectuals, and philosophers who were interested in promoting objectivism and related ideas about individualism and capitalism. She was closely related to Alan Greenspan and others. Alan Greenspan's L. Ron Hubbard's network revolved around the development and promotion of Scientology, given the significant differences in their ideologies and goals. Really, though? Like, really? You can see no connection? So I be making my chat is gonna work. Do you hear me? In the thinking or ideologies? Ideologies of self sufficiency in a collective or via a collective. Yeah, I'm so slow today. Collective self sufficiency in a collective for the whole. I think they was really, yeah, them thoughts kind of go together for me. This sun is mean. Do y'all understand this? When I say mean, it's mean. Mean. Let's see. Ayn Rand was highly critical of collectivism, socialism, and any system that, in her view, subordinated the individual to the group. She believed that such systems stifle creativity, innovation, and human potential. It was also critical of certain conventional systems, particularly psychiatry and psychology. I don't know. Going back to the reading, folks. So, what was that? Surely thought the poor fool. Give him some pleasure. What was that, child? So, and then Reardon thought suddenly that he could break through Philip's chronic wretchedness of a hopeless desire. He thought, what do I care about the nature of desire? It's his. Just as Reardon metal was mine. It must mean to him, it must mean to him what that meant to me. Let's see him happy just once. It might teach him something. Didn't I say that happiness is the agent of purification? I'm celebrating tonight, so let him share in it. It will be so much for him and so little for me. Philip said, he's Philip, he said, smiling. Call Miss Ives at my office tomorrow. She'll have a check for you for $10,000. Philip stared at him blankly. It was neither shock nor pleasure. It was just the empty stare of eyes that looked glassy. Oh, said Philip, then added, we'll appreciate it very much. There was no emotion in his voice, not even the simple one of greed. Reardon could not understand his own feeling. It was as if something leaden and empty were collapsing within him. He felt both the weight and the emptiness together. He knew it was disappointment, but he wondered why it was so gray and ugly. See, that is when you know you living. Like, if you understand the balance of it, if you are able to say something like people can ask me what's happening and I say everything and nothing at all. Or, if I'm categorizing myself, I may say I'm equally as brilliant as I am slow. That duality, that balance, that's where life lives. And there is nothing above or below that except as above, so below. And that's just what that is. Um, yeah, that's just what that is. So, everything and nothing at all at the same time. You know what I'm talking about? I love looking at my own skin. I swear I do. I'm so grateful my mama had loved me. I'm able to take care of myself. I'm finna make me some lemon water. That's what I gotta go get me some water in a minute, y'all. I'm putting me some chia seeds in there too. So where was I at? Can I understand? It's very nice of you, Henry, Philip said dryly. I'm surprised. I didn't expect it of you. Don't you understand it, Phil? Said Lillian, her voice peculiarly, that word is always peculiarly clear and lilting. Henry's poured his medal today. She turned to Reardon. Shall we declare it a national holiday, darling? That's the woman that just can't get it. No let up. Like, nah, I know you is. I don't know. We'll see. I'm reading this for the first time. Reardon stood looking at Philip as if waiting. Hey, y'all should come on. They say we should go. Hi, Miss Jewel. I'm reading her. This is Atlas Shrugged. Thank you for stopping by. You want to come in here? Nah, nope. You don't really care about. Wait a minute, no. You're a good man, Henry, said his mother, and added, but not often enough. Reardon stood looking at Philip as if waiting. Philip looked away, then raised his eyes and held Reardon's glance, as if engaged in the scrutiny of his own. You don't really care about helping the underprivileged, do you? Philip asked. And Reardon heard, unable to believe it, that the tone of his was reproachful. No, Phil, I don't care about it at all. I only wanted you to be happy. But the money is not for me. I am collecting it. I am not collecting it for any personal motive. I have no selfish interest in the matter whatever. His voice was cold with a note of self-conscious virtue. Reardon turned away. He felt a sudden loathing, not because the words were hypocrisy, but because they were true. Philip meant them. By the way, Henry, Philip added, do you mind if I ask you to have Miss Ives give me the money in cash? Reardon turned back to him, puzzled. You see, Friends of Global Progress are a very progressive group, and they have always maintained that you represent the blackest element of social retrogression in the country. So it would embarrass us, to have your name on our list of contributors because somebody, might accuse us of being in the pay of Hank Reardon. He wanted to slap Philip's face, but an almost unendurable contempt made him close his eyes instead. All right, he said quietly. You can have it in cash. He walked away to the farthest window of the room and stood looking at the glow of the mills in the distance. He heard Larkin's voice crying after him. Damn it, Hank! You shouldn't have given it to him. Then Lillian's voice came, cold and gay. But you're wrong, Paul. You're so wrong. What would happen to Henry's vanity if he didn't have us to throw alms to? What would become of his strength if he didn't have weaker people to dominate? What would he do with himself if he didn't keep us around as dependents? It's quite all right, really. I'm not criticizing him. It's just the laws of human nature. She took the metal bracelet and held it up, letting it glitter in the lamplight. A chain, she said. Appropriate, isn't it? It's the chain by which he holds us all in bondage. And now we go to chapter 3. The top and the bottom. The ceiling was that of a cellar, so heavy and low that the people stooped when crossing the room. The circular booths of dark red leather were built into the walls of stone that looked eaten by age and dampness. There were no windows, only patches of blue light shooting from dents in the masonry. The dead blue light proper for use in blackouts. The place was entered by way of narrow steps that led down as if descending deep up under the ground. This was the most expensive barroom in New York, and it was built on the roof of the skyscraper. 4 men sat at a table raised 60 floors above the city. They did not speak loudly, as one speaks from a height in the freedom of air and space. They kept their voices low, as befitted a cellar. Conditions and circumstances, Jim, said Orrin Boyle. Conditions and circumstances absolutely beyond human control. We had everything mapped to roll these rails, but unforeseen developments in which nobody could have prevented. If you'd only given us a chance, Jim. Disunity, drawled James Taggart, seems to be the basic cause of all social problems. My sister has a certain influence with a certain element among our stockholders. Their disruptive tactics cannot always be defeated. You said it, Jim, disunity. That's the trouble. It's my absolute opinion that in our complex industrial society, no business enterprise can succeed without sharing the burden of the problems of other enterprises. Taggart took a sip of his drink and put it down again. I wish they'd fire that bartender, he said. For instance, consider Associated Steel. We've got the most modern plant in the country and the best organization. That seems to me to be an indisputable fact because we got the Industrial Efficiency Award of Globe magazine last year. So we can maintain that we've done our best and nobody can blame us. But we cannot help it if the iron ore situation is a national problem. We could not get the ore, Jim. Taggart said nothing. He sat with his elbows spread wide on the tabletop. The table was uncomfortably small, and this made it more uncomfortable for his three companions, but they did not seem to question his privilege. Nobody can get ore any longer, said Boyle. Natural exhaustion of the mines. You know, and the wearing out of equipment and shortages of materials and difficulties of transportation and other unavoidable conditions. The ore industry is crumbling. That's what's killing the mining equipment business, said Paul Larkin. It's been proved that every business depends upon every other business, said Orrin Boyle. So everybody ought to share the burdens of everybody else. That is, I think, true, said Wesley Mooch. But nobody ever paid any attention to Wesley Mooch. My purpose, said Orrin Boyle, is the preservation of a free economy. It's generally conceded that free economy is now on trial. Unless it proves its social value and assumes its social responsibilities, the people won't stand for it. If it doesn't develop a public spirit, it's done for. Make no mistake about that. So this is also to be kept in mind. This is the time shortly after international countries had been adopted and the NATO is going on. There is transglobalism, industrialism, and the idea of socialism, from what I'm reading and what I know, happening like all at the same time. Hi, Kat. Thank you for being here with me, babe. If you stayed, if you left, either way, I love you for coming. I don't know. You wanna? Let's see. I don't know. I sent it. I'm just reading, but I know they are doing some multi guess what now. Who did he? Um, so it's generally conceded that the free economy is now on trial. Unless it proves its social value and assumes social responsibilities, the people won't stand for it. If it doesn't develop a public spirit, it's done for. Make no mistake about that. Orrin Boyle had appeared from nowhere 5 years ago. He had since made the cover of every national news magazine. He had started out with $100,000 of his own and a $200 million loan from the government. Now he headed an enormous concern which had swallowed many smaller companies. This proved, he liked to say, that individual ability still had a chance to succeed in the world. The only justification of private, said Orrin Boyle, is public service. That sounds like something to know. The only justification of private property is public service. This is my phone. See, I'm gonna have to take some notes. I gotta give me a proper notebook. Y'all, I've been a horrible student for so long. Horrible student. My word. Hold on, I gotta wipe this off. And I gotta be careful. Oh, nosy niggas. I need some water. Daughter, don't you want to make us some lime lemon water?
You want me to make you some lemon water? Yes.
I do want some, please. Oh, okay. Lime lemon water. You know, if you put lemons or limes better than lemons in your water, it alkalizes them. And disease cannot live in an alkaline system. It's just that simple. They done made things. That's why this book is so important. I think that the timing of me reading it is even more important because I had to know what I know in order to get it. And this line definitely needs to be written down. Atlas Shrugged. Now, also in documentation, documenting, you should document with date, time. And I have learned, especially if you're a traveler, where you at, because you liable to forget. So the date is 8/15/24, right? The time is 6:36, which, oh my word. And I'm EST, right? We gonna parentheses that. Then we're gonna write this line and say the only justification, and this is page. So we're gonna actually document this page 55 paragraph. You remember when you was in school, page 55, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6. Paragraph 6. And then you hit that. Then you say the only justification for private property is public service. So, and who said it? And that is Orrin Boyle. So yeah, that's definitely the only justification of private property is public service. That is, I think, indubitable, said Wesley Mooch. Orrin Boyle made a noise, swallowing his liquor. He was a large man with big, virile gestures. Everything about his person was loudly full of life except the small black slits of his eyes. You should understand what that said. The small black slits of his eyes. Jim, he said, written metal seems to be a colossal kind of swindle. Uh-huh, said Taggart. I hear there's not a single expert who's given a favorable report on it. Not one. No, not one. We've been improving steel rails for generations and increasing their weight. What is it true that these written metal rails are to be lighter than the cheapest grade of steel? That's right, said Taggart, lighter. But it's ridiculous, Jim. It's physically impossible for your heavy duty, high speed mainline track. That's right. But you're just inviting disaster. My sister is. Taggart made the stem of his glass whirl slowly between two fingers. There was a moment of silence. The National Council of Metal Industries, said Orrin Boyle, passed a resolution to appoint a committee to study the question of written metal, inasmuch as its use may be an actual public hazard. That is, in my opinion, why, said Wesley Mooch. When everybody agrees, Taggart's voice suddenly went shrill. When people are unanimous, how does one man dare to dissent? By what right? That's what I want to know. By what right? Boyle's eyes darted to Taggart's face, but the dim light of the room made it impossible to see faces clearly. He saw only a pale bluish smear. When we think of the natural resource at a time of critical shortage, Boyle said softly, when we think of the critical raw materials that are being wasted on an irresponsible private experiment, when we think of the ore, he did not finish. He glanced at Taggart again. But Taggart seemed to know that Boyle was waiting and to find the silence enjoyable. The public has a vital stake in natural resources, Jim, such as iron ore. The public can't remain indifferent to reckless, selfish waste by an antisocial individual. After all, private property is a trusteeship held for the benefit of society as a whole. That seems like it should be written down. Private. I'm telling you, there's a mini Wharton education in this book. I am positive of it. And absolute Soros ideals, I'm sure. That can be used to what's the word I would counter engineer is what I wanted to say. What did I just where is it? Mm, private property. Okay, so we're gonna put the little three after all. Private property. Private property is a trusteeship held for the benefit of society about private property is a trusteeship held for the benefits society as a whole. Okay, so we gonna do this too. This is page 56, and this is paragraph 1, 2. Now, if you was being really, really, you would do the sentence too, but I don't feel like all of that. So Taggart glanced at Boyle and smiled. The smile was pointed. It seemed to say something that his words, excuse me, that his words, in his words was an answer to something in the words of Boyle. The liquor they serve here is swill. I suppose that's the price we have to pay for not being crowded by all kinds of rabble. But I do wish they recognize that they're dealing with experts. I am the expert. We say that in my house. um, that they're dealing with experts. Since I hold the purse strings, I expect to get my money's worth and at my pleasure. Boyle did not answer. His face had become sullen. Listen, Jim, he began heavily. Taggart's. No, that's trash. That's why I took it out. I was taking out the old food. You know I'm still cleaning the refrigerator when I come in there, right? Okay. Did you ever eat, baby? Did you ever eat? Did you ever eat? Can you please eat some? You ate that sandwich. You did eat a sandwich. That sandwich was good, so they have the best deli meat. You want some more of my maple turkey, don't you?
It's the last piece.
Huh?
It's the last piece.
How's the last piece? George used my. I hate them. He used my stuff.
I don't know.
He had to, because I had more than that.
You're going to do this without me. I want things. But we need to go back to the market.
Yeah, I need that for my brown spag out. You can have a piece and I can have a piece, because it's still. Make me a sandwich then.
Where's our clean the dishes? I just scrubbed the floor, so I clean the dishes.
You weren't even supposed to scrub the floor. That wasn't your
No,
job.
but it was looking.
It was stripe mode. That's why I was coming in there to do it.
Melted.
I'm authentic. I'm telling you, all this image shit is going out.
It was not stripe mode. You just fit.
I mean, it just wasn't. It wasn't like these people. These people that I look like. They would have. You know. I mean.
Okay. You want me to cut it in half?
I want you to do all the cute stuff. I want you to make. I keep on forgetting my garlic aioli. Take your
But when I
time.
go to the store, when I go to the store,
I want butter pecan cookies again and butter pecan ice cream. These niggas keep. Do you know them? Hold on. Why will it end? I'm going. What I gotta do? I've been talking this whole time. What are you talking about? You go, because I'm talking. What are you talking? Why do y'all bother me? Like, people come on here and do all kind of weird ass shit. Y'all always doing all random ass shit to me. I was trying to pause you anyway. Hold on. How I pause you? No, I just want to pause you. I heard got the more right here. Pause. So then it just cut off if you stay on there. So it might just cut off. I've been reading. I go back. No, why? What was I gonna tell you about the misses? I went in my purse and ate my cookies. I went in my up here. That's ridiculous, ain't it? I want you to get your roast dinner too, though. When you go to the store, get your dinner because you want that some more for
I
dinner.
want to cook my own stuff. So I want to get me something that I can cook.
Oh, okay.
for everybody, and y'all gonna eat.
Okay.
There's 11, and it's gonna be good. It's not
I'm
gonna
just
be.
saying, if you want me to make you a roast dinner, get the stuff you want over the weekend, or get whatever you want for Sunday dinner. Or you ain't got to. We go back to the store on Saturday.
Oh, I gotta go do some extra.
You got money. You spend your own. Y'all, yeah, we gonna get it figured out. Don't worry about it.
I'm not alone.
I want my water now though. If I could get that, that would be wonderful. Okay, I'm going back to reading to the public. Oh, I should have put literacy. This is literacy, huh? And English lit at that. But I do wish they'd recognize that they're dealing with experts. Since I hold the purse strings, I expect to get my money's worth and at my pleasure. Boyle did not answer. His face had become sullen. Listen, Jim, he began heavily. Taggart smiled. What? I'm listening. Jim, you will agree. I'm sure that there's nothing more destructive than a monopoly. Yes, said Taggart, on the one hand. On the other, there's the blight. You know what? This is what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. On the other, there's the blight. I'm over here. No, I'm not over there yet. On the other, there's the blight of unbridled competition. That's true. I think I just went. That's true. That's very true. The proper course is always, in my opinion, in the middle. So it is, I think, the duty of society to snip the extremes, now isn't it? Yes, said Taggart, it is. Consider the picture in the iron ore business. The national output seems to be falling at an ungodly rate. It threatens the existence of the whole steel industry. Steel mills are shutting down all over the country. There's only one mining company that's lucky enough not to be affected by the general conditions. Its output seems to be plentiful and always available on schedule. But who gets the benefit of it? Nobody except its owner. Would you say that that's fair? No, said Taggart, it isn't fair. Most of us don't own iron mines. How can we compete with a man who's got a corner on God's natural resources? God's natural resources. Now you got to know that's what you are. See, this is why I couldn't read this book till now. Equals me. I am land. Uh huh. That is crazy. Like these are God's own natural resources, and how can you compete with a man who's got a corner on God's own natural? Hold on. How can we compete with a man who's got a corner on God's natural resources? Is it any wonder that he can always deliver steel? While we have to struggle and wait and lose our customers and go out of business, is it in the public interest to let one man destroy an entire industry? No, said Taggart, it isn't. It seems to me that the national policy ought to be aimed at the objective of giving everybody a chance at his fair share of iron ore, or with a view toward the preservation of the industry as a whole. Don't you think so? I think so. Boyle sighed, then he said cautiously, but I guess there aren't many people in Washington capable of understanding a progressive social policy. Taggart said slowly. There are. No, not many, and not easy to approach, but there are. I might speak to them. Boyle picked up his drink and swallowed it in one gulp, as if he had heard all he wanted to hear. Speaking of progressive policies, Orrin, said Taggart, You might ask yourself whether, at a time of transportation shortages, when so many railroads are going bankrupt and large areas are left without rail service, whether it is in the public interest to tolerate wasteful duplication of services and the destructive dog eat dog competition of newcomers in territories where established companies have historical priority. Well, now, said Boyle pleasantly, that seems to be an interesting question to consider. I might discuss it with a few friends in the National Alliance of Railroads. Friendships, said Taggart, in the tone of idle abstraction, are more valuable than gold. Unexpectedly, he turned to Larkin. Don't you think so, Paul? Why, yes, said Larkin, astonished. Yes, of course. I'm counting on yours. Huh? I'm counting on your many friendships. They all seemed to know why Larkin did not answer at once. His shoulders seemed to shrink down, closer to the table. If everybody could pull for a common purpose, then nobody would have to be hurt. He cried suddenly in a tone of incongruous despair. He saw Taggart watching him and added, pleading, I wish we didn't have to hurt anybody. That is an antisocial attitude, drawled Taggart. People who are afraid to sacrifice somebody have no business talking about a common purpose. Mm-mm-mm. You heard that? People who are not willing to sacrifice somebody. I just got to keep looking. I actually noticed have no business talking about a common purpose. Mm-mm-mm. I would just encourage you. I would say Tavistock Institute, baby. Mm-hmm. Hey, little Rudy, thank you for coming in here. Whoever come in, we sure appreciate it. We reading around here. We using something that we need around here. We are reading Atlas Shrugged, as you should have seen in the note. And we just read that anybody, this is Orrin Boyle, and he said, no, not Orrin Boyle, this was Taggart. Taggart said, people who are afraid to sacrifice somebody have no business talking about a common purpose. But I'm a student of history, said Larkin hastily. I recognize historical necessity. Good, said Taggart. I can't be expected to buck the trend of the whole world, can I? Larkin seemed to plead, but the plea was not addressed to anyone. Can I? You can't, Mr. Larkin, said Wesley Mooch. You and I are not to be blamed if we. Larkin jerked his head away. It was almost a shudder. He could not bear to look at Mooch. Did you have a good time in Mexico, Orrin? Asked Taggart, his voice suddenly loud and casual. All of them seemed to know that the purpose of their meeting was accomplished, and whatever they had come here to understand was understood. Whatever place, wonderful place, Mexico, Boyle answered cheerfully. Very stimulating and thought provoking. Their food rations are something awful, though. I got sick, but they're working mighty hard to put their country on its feet. How are things going down there? Pretty splendid. It seems to me pretty splendid. Right at the moment, however, but then what they're aiming at is the future. The people state of Mexico has a great future. They'll beat us all in a few years. Did you go down to the Sebastian mines? The four figures at the table sat up straighter and tighter. All of them bad had invested heavily in the stock of the San Sebastian mines. Boyle did not answer at once, so that his voice seemed unexpected and unnaturally loud when it burst forth. Oh, sure. Certainly, that's what I wanted to see most. And? And what? How are things going? Great, great. They must certainly have the biggest deposits of copper on Earth down inside that mountain. Did they seem to be busy? Never saw such a busy place in my life. What were they busy doing? Well, with the kind of spick superintendent they have down there, I couldn't understand half of what he was talking about. I didn't know they was going to say that. I'm just reading the book. But they're certainly busy. Any kind of trouble? Any trouble of any kind? Trouble? Not at San Sebastian. It's private property. The last piece of it left in Mexico, and that does seem to make a difference. Orrin, Taggart asked cautiously, what about those rumors that they're planning to nationalize the San Sebastian mines? Slander, said Boyle angrily. Plain vicious slander. I know it for certain. I had dinner with the Minister of Culture and lunches with all the rest of the boys. There ought to be a law against irresponsible gossip, said Taggart suddenly. Let's have another drink. He waved irritably at the waiter. There was a small bar in a dark corner of the room, where an old wizened bartender stood for long stretches of time without moving. When called upon, he moved with contemptuous slowness. His job was that of a servant to men's relaxation and pleasure, but his manner was that of an embittered quack ministering to some guilty disease. The four men sat in silence until their waiter returned with their drinks. The glasses he placed on the table were four spots of faint blue glitter in the semi darkness, like four feeble jets of gas flame. Taggart reached for his glass and smiled suddenly. Let's drink to the sacrifices of historical necessity, he said, looking at Larkin. There was a moment's pause in a lighted room. Before I move on, that is to her, Kamala, to be unburdened by what has already been done is equivalent to let's drink to the sacrifices of historical necessity. This bitch playing a game. She playing a dangerous game, though. She playing a game. There was a moment's pause in a lighted room. It would have been the contest of two men holding each other's eyes. Wait, I gotta write that down. Taggart. Taggart. Hold on. What page was that? Damn. Is that on this page? It's the page before this. Page before this. Hold up. I ain't get my documentation right. This is 57. Paragraph. Wait, no. Yeah, 57. Paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And so then this the intake it says. He said, let's drink. Drink to the sacrifices of historical, to the sacrifices to historical, to the sacrifices to historical necessity. Uh-huh. Actually, this is page 58. So page 58, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21. Mm-hmm. Help me get through the book, y'all. The contest of two, like, it would have been It would have been the contest of two men holding each other's eyes. Here, they were merely looking at each other's eye sockets. Then Larkin picked up his glass. "It's my party, boys," said Taggart as they drank. Nobody found anything else to say until Boyle spoke up with indifferent curiosity. "Say, Jim, I meant to ask you, what in the hell's the matter with your train service down on the San Sebastian line?" "Why, what do you mean? What's the matter with it?" "Well, I don't know, but running just one passenger train a day is one train. Is pretty measly service, it seems to me, and what a train. You must have inherited those coaches from your great grandfather, and he must have used them pretty hard. And where on earth did you get that wood burning locomotive?" "Wood burning? That's what I said, wood burning. I never saw one before except in photographs. What museum did you drag it out of? Now, don't act as if you didn't know. Just tell me what's the gag." "Yes, of course I knew," said Taggart hastily. "It was just, you just happened to choose the one week when we had a little trouble with our motive power. Our new engines are on order, but there's been a slight delay. You know what a problem we're having with the manufacturers of locomotives, but it's only temporary." "Of course," said Boyle. "Delays can't be helped. It's the strangest train I ever rode on. Nearly shook my guts out." Within a few minutes, they noticed that Taggart had become silent. He seemed preoccupied with the problem of his own. When he rose abruptly without apology, they rose, too, accepting it as a command. Larkin muttered, smiling too strenuously, "It was a pleasure, Jim, a pleasure. That's how great projects are born, over a drink with friends." "Social reforms are slow," said Taggart coldly. "It is advisable to be patient and cautious." For the first time, he turned to Wesley Mooch. "What I like about you, Mooch, is that you don't talk too much." Wesley Mooch was Reardon's Washington man. Mm-mm. So I'm not gonna write all this out, even though I want all of it, because it seemed like I just want to quote this shit. But I can just paraphrase it. I can paraphrase it. It's how great projects are born. Over a drink with friends. It's 59, right? And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. Thank y'all for the likes. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Kat. I so appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. True. So yeah, that was important to me because again, I've been telling people living in DC, thank y'all. Hey, that happened really quick. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. I moved. Living in like no deal goes down for real. Deals don't happen in the open. Deals happen in back rooms. Like you got to be in them places like the USBC happened last week. I mean, not last week, a couple weeks ago. But uh then it changed hands. They were purporting it as a black-owned hotel, but whatever. I'm not even going to get into whatever's happening with the deal. I'm actually trying to find out. But what I'm saying is, whatever they was trying to make some deals, and girl, thank you. I got to do this laugh house stuff on my word. But so, okay, back to this. So, Wesley Mooch was Reardon's man. There was still a remnant of sunset light in the sky when Taggart and Boyle emerged together into the street below. The transition was faintly shocking to them. The enclosed barroom led one to expect midnight darkness. A tall building stood outlined against the sky, sharp and straight like a raised sword. In the distance beyond it, there hung the calendar. Taggart fumbled irritably with his coat collar, buttoning it against the chill of the streets. He had not intended to go back to the office tonight, but he had to go back. He had to see his sister. A difficult undertaking ahead of us, Jim, Boyle was saying. A difficult undertaking, with so many dangers and complications and so much at stake. It all depends, James Taggart answered slowly, on knowing the people who make it possible. That's what has to be known. Who makes it possible? Them facts. Them facts. It's so much in these characters. I can see myself so much in the different characters. It's a span of them that I can see myself in. Dagny Taggart was 9 years old when she decided that she would run the Taggart Transcontinental Railroad someday. She stated it to herself when she stood alone between the rails, looking at the two straight lines of steel that went off into the distance and met in a single point. When she felt what she felt was an arrogant pleasure at the way the track cut through the woods. It did not belong in the midst of ancient trees, among green branches that hung down to meet green brush and the lonely spears of wildflowers. But there it was. Two steel lines were brilliant in the sun, and the black ties were like the rungs of a ladder which she had to climb. It was not a sudden decision, but only the final seal of words upon something she had known long ago in an unspoken understanding. As if bound by a vow it had never been necessary to take, she and Eddie Willers had given themselves to the railroad from the first conscious days of their childhood. She felt a bored indifference toward the immediate world around her, toward other children and adults alike. She took it as a regrettable accident to be born patiently for a while, that she happened to be imprisoned among people who were dull. She had caught a glimpse of another world and she knew that it existed somewhere. The world that had created trains, bridges, telegraph wires, and signal lights winking in the night. She had to wait, she thought, and grow up to that world. She never tried to explain why she liked the railroad. Whatever it was that others felt, she knew that this was one emotion for which they had no equivalent and no response. That's how I feel about my creation, my covenant, and me. Like, facts. She felt the same emotion in school, in classes of mathematics, the only lesson she liked. She felt the excitement of solving problems, the insolent delight of taking up a challenge and disposing of it without effort, the eagerness to meet another harder test. She felt at the same time a growing respect for the adversary, for a science that was so clean, so strict, so luminously rational. Studying mathematics, she felt quite simply and at once how great that men have done this and how wonderful that I'm so good at it. It was the joy of admiration and of one's own ability growing together. Her feeling for the railroad was the same worship of the skill that had gone to make it, of the ingenuity of someone's clean reasoning mind, worship with a secret smile that said she would know how to make it better someday. She hung around the tracks and the roundhouses like a humble student, but the humility had a touch of future pride, a pride to be earned. You're unbearably conceited was one of the two sentences she heard throughout her childhood, even though she never spoke of her own ability. The other sentence was, you're selfish. She asked what was meant, but never received an answer. She looked at the adults, wondering how they could imagine that she would feel guilt from such an undefined accusation. She was 12 years old when she was 12 years old when she told Eddie Willers that she would run the railroad when they grow up. She was 15 when it occurred to her for the first time that women did not run railroads and that people might object. To hell with that, she thought, and never worried about it again. She went to work for Taggart Transcontinental at the age of 16. Her father permitted it. He was amused and a little curious. She started as a night operator at a small country station. She had to work nights for the first few years while attending College of Engineering. James Taggart began his career on the railroad at the same time. He was 21. He started in the Department of Public Relations. Dagny's rise among the men who operated Taggart Transcontinental was swift and uncontested. She took positions of responsibility because there was no one else to take them. There were few rare men of talent around her, but they were becoming rarer every year. Her superiors who held the authority seemed afraid to exercise it. They spent their time avoiding decisions. She told people what to do and they did it. At every step of her rise, she did the work long before she was granted the title. It was like advancing through empty rooms. Nobody opposed her, yet nobody approved of her progress. Oh, my word. Let that be. Come on now. Her father seemed astonished and proud of her. But he said nothing, and there was sadness in his eyes when he looked at her in the office. She was 29 years old when he died. There has always been a Taggart to run the railroad, was the last thing he said to her. He looked at her with an odd glance. It had the quality of a salute and of compassion together. The controlling stock of Taggart Transcontinental was left to James Taggart. He was 34 when he became president of the railroad. Dagny had expected the board of directors to elect him, but she had never been able to understand why they did it so eagerly. They talked about tradition. The president had always been the eldest son of the Taggart family. They elected James Taggart in the same manner as they refused to walk under a ladder, to propitiate, propitiate, the same kind of fear, propitiate or propitiate. They talked about his gift of making railroads popular and his good press, his Washington ability. He seemed unusually skillful at obtaining favors from the legislature. Dagny knew nothing about the field of Washington ability or what such an ability implied, but it seemed to be necessary. So she dismissed it with the thought that there were many kinds of work which were offensive yet necessary, such as cleaning sewers. Somebody had to do it, and Jim seemed to like it. She never aspired to the presidency. The operating department was her only concern. When she went out when she went out on the line, old railroad men who hated Jim. There will always be a Taggart to run the railroad. Looking at her as her father had looked, she was armed against Jim by the conviction that she was not smart enough to harm the railroad too much and that she would always be able to correct whatever damage he caused. At 16, at her operator's desk, watching the lighted windows of Taggart trains roll past, she had thought that she had entered her kind of world. In the years since, she learned that she hadn't. The adversary she found herself forced to fight was not worth matching or beating. It was not a superior ability which she would have found honor in challenging. It was ineptitude. A gray spread of cotton that seemed soft and shapeless, that could offer no resistance to anything or anybody, yet managed to be a barrier in her way. She stood disarmed. Before the riddle of what made this possible, she could find no answer. It was only in the first few years that she felt herself screaming silently, at times for a glimpse of human ability, a single glimpse of clean, hard, radiant competence. She had fits of tortured longing for a friend or an enemy with a mind better than her own, but the longing passed. She had a job to do. She did not have time to feel pain, not often. The first step of the policy that James Taggart brought to the railroad was the construction of the San Sebastian line. I am Dagny. Lord, I am. Willers. I don't have time. No time to feel pain. To feel she is a walking symbol. Ah, many men were responsible for it, but to Dagny, one name stood written across the venture, a name that wiped out all others whenever she saw it. It stood across 5 years of struggle, across miles of wasted track, across sheets of figures that recorded the losses of Taggart Transcontinental like a red trickle from a wound which would not heal. As it stood on the ticker tape of every stock exchange left in the world, as it stood on smokestacks in the red glare of furnaces melting copper, as it stood in scandalous headlines, as it stood on parchment pages recording the nobility of centuries, as it stood on cards attached to flowers in the boudoirs of women scattered through 3 continents. The name was Francisco de Anconia. At the age of 23, when he inherited his fortune, Francisco de Anconia had been famous as the Copper King of the world. Now, at 36, he was as famous as the richest man and the most spectacularly worthless playboy on earth. He was the last descendant of one of the noblest families of Argentina. He owned capital ranches, coffee plantations, and most of the copper mines in Chile. He owned half of South America and sundry mines scattered through the United States as small change. One moment. One moment, guys. I gotta put you on hold. Hold. Yes. Yay! I gotta thank her. I got a lightning bolt. That's my first one. It still didn't register. I asked for a star, bitch.
What's wrong with you? We don't have no regular water. We only got time.
I know. That's why I said put me some lime water and some lime juice in there, baby. That's how you know. Wait a minute. You understand that? That's how you alkalize the water. I think I'm gonna walk up the street though, cause I don't think they getting back till late. And I want a cigarette bad as hell. Like now. Thank you for the lightning bolt. I'm so appreciative. Thank you. Woo! I'm having so much fun. You don't even know how much fun I'm having reading this book. So back to him. When Francisco Gianconia suddenly bought miles of bare mountains in Mexico, news leaked out that he had discovered vast deposits of copper. He made no effort to sell his stock. Oh my God, you know I hate drinking out of this. This just water and lime juice?
Yeah.
You made it super thick. Can I get a regular cup? I hate drinking out of these. Please. Huh? That's fine. Please, I asked y'all to stop drinking out of my damn cup. Put it in a regular cup for me, Robert. When Francisco de Anconia bought miles of bare mountains in Mexico, news leaked that he had discovered vast deposits of copper. He made no effort to sell stock in his venture. The stock was begged out of his hands, and he merely chose those whom he wished to favor from among the applicants. His financial talent was called phenomenal. No one had ever beaten him in any transaction. He added to his incredible fortune with every deal he touched. Did you make you some too? It didn't all fit in her.
I don't know.
You saved me some. Now you want some. Now you want some of my water. You said you ain't want none. So this is homemade lime water, y'all. It is. I told y'all it's alkalizing. I'm a lifestyle brand. I can't do nothing but come you how I come, and I'm gonna give you everything I got because I don't keep no gates. Lime water will help your kidneys, your liver. Hey, look, it alkalizes your system. You made this so super strong. Oh, it's all right though. I like it like this. Forget you. You know what? I'm finna put some great salt in mine though. So not for nothing. Somebody been using this salt too. This is great salt. Great salt. It helps to mineralize. My daughter made this a super light. You only need a little pinch, and you can either. I'm gonna drop me some in there, but I'm also just gonna eat a little bit. And it helps. I'm about mineral. I'm about health. Trust me, I'm about it. I'm about that as best as I can be. And so over the tunnel and through the tunnel and down the hatch. It is so hydrating, oh guys. Like so hydrating. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. I was thirsty too. I needed a drink. I was a tad bit parched. So if we understand Francisco de Anconia, I want some more salt too. Francisco de Anconia, he bought this land and he did not sell stocks. He chose who he wanted to go into business with. And so then they said his financial talents were phenomenal, but he made no effort to sell stock in his venture. The stock was begged out of his hands, and he merely chose those whom he wished to favor from among the applicants. His financial talent was called phenomenal. No one had ever beaten him in any transaction. He added to his incredible fortune with every deal he touched and every step he made when he took the trouble to make it. Mm-mm-mm. Those who censured him were first to seize the chance of riding on his talent toward a share of his new wealth. James Taggart, toward a share of his new wealth. James Taggart, Orrin Boyle, and their friends were among the heaviest stockholders of the project, which Francisco de Anconia had named the San Sebastian Mines. Dagny was never able to discover what influences prompted James Taggart to build a railroad branch from Texas into the wilderness of San Sebastian. It seemed likely that he did not know himself. Like a field without a windbreak, he seemed to open to any current, and the final sum was made by chance. A few among the directors of Taggart. Transcontinental objected to the project. The company needed all its resources to build the Rio Norte line. So I guess it just don't want to come on this thing. Here we go. Like, it be so much going on. It be cold, then I be cold, then I be cold. So here we go. Okay. It seems we're gonna take a break in a minute, guys. I've been reading for about an hour and a half, which is woo. First of all, I let her read, I let her read, I let her read. I love to read. Um, a few among the directors of Taggart Transcontinental objected to the project. The company needed all its resources to rebuild the Rio Norte line. It could not do both, but James Taggart was the road's new president. It was the first year of his administration. He won. The People's State of Mexico was eager to cooperate and signed a contract guaranteeing that for 200 years the property right of Taggart Transcontinental to its railroad line in a country where no property rights existed. Francisco de Anconia obtained the same guarantee for his mines. Now, what I would do if I still had, I have a foreign affairs Bible that I refer to. It's called The Devil's Chessboard. And if I had that book in my possession right now, I would be going to it. I would be cross-referencing this information because there's a lot of life that is in it's just in this. And yeah, I would definitely be did you type this? I would be cross-referencing it. So let me take my plug out for a second. I'm looking for something I don't think I have. But so we just gonna sit there right there. Yeah, I need to take a break, y'all, but I do love y'all. I mean, it's gonna come back. I'm telling y'all, I'm reading this book. And I love my hair, and I just want to thank Peach McIntyre again for coming out with your own hair. I don't know how long you're going to take before you go back to the salon. I just want to say, as a true natural head, I appreciate it. It took me about 6 years to get to where I love my hair. And y'all know I had a bald spot back here like a thick one, like a big, 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 thick one. And it's here. It's back. My hair back. So thank you for the gifts. I love you. Lightning bolts, heart, stars, all that's welcome. Thank you. Taylor Fan Philosophy. We'll be back with Atlas Shrugged soon. Let me close out of this here YouTube. Add part one. I forgot to put part one in this stream. Oh, wow.